Welcome to this course on occupational heat stress. We have previously discussed heat-related illnesses in the workplace and how this can affect worker safety. But as workers within the Commonwealth begin to return to work after a prolonged absence due to COVID-19, Kentucky employers should be extra vigilant in refreshing employee training, especially as it relates to heat illness prevention and other safety requirements that could have slipped an employee's mind while they were in quarantine. Workers at risk for heat-related illnesses covers a wide range of occupations, which can include farmers, factory workers, construction, landscaping, and many others. On March 6, 2020, Governor Andy Beshear signed an Executive Order 2020-215 declaring a state of emergency for the Commonwealth of Kentucky due to COVID-19. On May 11th, the Cabinet for Health and Family Services issued an order implementing the minimum requirements for all entities that were reopening within the Commonwealth as part of the Governor's Healthy at Work initiative. As part of these minimum requirements is the requirement for universal masks, which states businesses, organizations, and entities must ensure to the greatest extent practicable that their employees, volunteers, and contractors wear a cloth mask. A surgical or N95 mask is not required. A business, organization, or entity need not require an employee to wear a mask when masking will create a serious health or safety hazard to that employee, when the employee is working alone in an enclosed space, or when they are working alone in an area with more than 6 feet of social distancing. Businesses and organizations shall provide PPE at no cost to the employees and should offer instruction on proper use of masks and PPE. As many of you may already be aware, wearing these masks may have caused some difficulties for your staff, especially those working in hot, humid environments. Some of the complaints that I have received from employees that are required to wear these facial coverings range from mild irritation from the mask itself to potential physical hazards of safety glasses becoming fogged over and reducing the employee's ability to see safely through their glasses. When working in hot conditions, one of the things we must be mindful of is heat stress. Heat stress is the net heat load that a worker may be exposed to from the combined contributions of metabolic heat, which is really just the amount of heat that is generated from our body as we're performing work. It may also come from environmental factors such as air temperature, humidity, air movement, and radiant heat sources, and any clothing requirements, such as personal protective equipment, which would include masks and facial coverings. Now, a mild or moderate heat stress may cause some discomfort and may potentially adversely affect performance and safety, but it's not necessarily harmful to an employee's health. But as this stress approaches human tolerance limits, the risk for heat-related disorders also increases. Now, an important note to heat stress is acclimatization. Now, this acclimatization is the gradual physiological adaptation that improves in an individual's ability to tolerate heat stress. On initial exposure to hot conditions, an individual may show signs and symptoms of distress. Core body temperatures may increase in response to work in hot conditions, and heat exhaustion may occur. However, upon repeated exposures, workers will develop a reduced blood flow and increased sweat rate in response to the heat. Acclimatization requires physical activity in as little as 2 hours of daily exposure, anywhere from 7 to 10 days. This is one of those things, though, that if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So you can lose this acclimatization once the exposure is discontinued. A noticeable loss occurs after 4 days and may be completely lost after 3 to 4 weeks. So if you have employees that are on a long vacation or for a long weekend, it's important to give this person a little bit of a leeway when they return to work in the event that they may have lost some of this acclimatization. Now, according to NIOSH, workers at greater risk of heat stress include those who are 65 years of age or older, are overweight, have heart disease or high blood pressure, or take medications that may be affected by extreme heat. These higher risk employees were among the first to quarantine due to risk associated with COVID-19 and may need the longest time to reacclimatize in the workplace. Some studies have noted that with the state of serious viral respiratory infectious outbreaks, there have been an increase in demand in wearing protective face masks, and that wearing these face masks has some user complaints of increased facial heat, increased temperature of breathing air, local dermal effects on the face from the mask, elevated core body temperatures, and some psychophysiological responses. This means that risk of heat stress may be exacerbated through the wearing of these facial coverings by keeping that heat close to the body. So if you have employees that may be susceptible to heat-related illnesses, especially if they are working physically demanding jobs, it is imperative that you implement a heat illness prevention plan to protect those employees. Now let's switch gears a little bit here and talk about some of the various heat-related illnesses that one may encounter in the workplace. First up are heat cramps. Some of the signs and symptoms of heat cramps include muscle spasms, heavy perspiration, and the person may begin to feel weak or lightheaded. Some of the things that we can do to correct these heat cramps would include remove this person from the hot environment, allow the person to rest and to recover their core body temperatures, and then make sure that we're giving them plenty of fluids by mouth. And when we're talking about fluids, really what we mean is water. Oftentimes one of the first things that we tend to go for would be things like Gatorade and Powerade. Not that there's anything wrong with these electrolytic drinks, but the main problem with them is that they do contain a lot of sugar. And sugar acts as a diuretic, which can cause the body to lose even more water. And that's not really something that we want. We want to try to avoid losing any more water than necessary. If these heat cramps are not properly addressed, this can potentially lead to heat exhaustion. Some of the signs and symptoms of heat exhaustion include heavy perspiration. They may begin to have cold, clammy skin. The person may begin to feel dizzy or faint, and they may begin to feel nauseous. Now this becomes kind of a serious issue at this point, and so some of the first aid measures that we want to do is first seek medical attention. While we're waiting for medical responders to arrive, you want to remove any excess clothing from that person. Since they're beginning to feel dizzy and faint, you want to have that person sit or lie down. You don't want to create any extra problems by having the person pass out while they're standing up. And again, make sure you're giving them plenty of water to drink while waiting for those first responders to arrive. If heat exhaustion is not properly addressed, this can then lead to heat stroke. Some signs and symptoms of heat stroke include elevated body temperature. The skin may become red and very dry to the touch. At this point too, we've given all we can give, and the person may begin to cease to sweat. They may experience nausea and potentially vomiting. They will experience delusional or irrational behavior. The person can become unconscious and even experience convulsions, and generally just unresponsive. If anyone's experiencing any of these symptoms of heat stroke, this is a true medical emergency. You need to dial 911. While waiting for first responders to arrive, remove this person from the hot environment. Preferably place them in an air-conditioned room, air-conditioned truck, vehicle. If that's not possible, place this person in some shade. You want to remove all clothing from this person at that point. You want to apply ice packs to some of the major arterial locations. This would include around the neck, under the armpits, and in the groin area. And since this person has ceased to sweat, you want to cover them with wet towels so that you can simulate that moisture on the body. Now, some of the things that we can do in the workplace in order to prevent heat-related illnesses would include provide heat exposure training for all of your employees. You want to provide and encourage employees to drink plenty of fluids throughout the day. And keep in mind too, this is when we're talking about fluids, we're talking about water. We want to try to avoid any sugary drinks. Encourage your employees to observe and report any symptoms of heat exposure. Encourage healthy lifestyles. Take caution with employees who have been absent from hot environments. Keep in mind the idea of acclimatization. It's one of those things, if you don't use it, you can lose it. And then monitor daily heat stress conditions and reports of heat-related disorders. This concludes our presentation on occupational heat stress. For further information, you can check out our website at kysafe.ky.gov, or you can reach us at the Kentucky Labor Cabinet at 502-564-3070.